I cannot believe what happened yesterday, and I can't wait to share it with you guys because it has everything to do with mindset. So, Lashpreneurs, if you've been following my journey or you've been listening for, I would say, since the pandemic or before, you have seen Tara go through quite a journey. Mainly, basically from when I shut the business down for a couple months, brought it back and forward. That has been me on a very different path with mindset more than anything. And it's allowed me to overcome a lot of stuff in my life, mainly anxiety and depression. I've lost 40 pounds. I just competed in my first CrossFit competition. I've only been doing it for about 4 months. Um, and y'all, my team and I, we got second place out of 20 teams. And I've only been doing CrossFit for 4-ish months, but realistically, like working out 4 days a week for 2 months. So to say that my mind was blown at what we were capable of doing, and even what I've learned about the scoring system and how we actually ended up getting second place it was just, there's so many takeaways and so many lessons, and I couldn't wait to share it with you. So first and foremost, whether you work out or not, whether you understand CrossFit or not, totally not relevant. It's really how I look at things that I wanted to share with you that would benefit you and kind of make you question how is it that you're perceiving things that you're labeling as hard or uncomfortable or out of your comfort zone, or your belief in yourself, and also like what meaning you're placing on getting a specific result. So when I signed up for the competition, it was just my local gym, and we have a very big gym. Um, and they said, if you're begin or if you've never competed before, this would be a great one to start. They break up the teams to balance them out versus with like what are called RX athletes, quote unquote. I mean, everybody in the gym is considered an athlete, whether you're athletic or not. It's just what they label you. So you're either an RX or a prescription athlete, which means that as the workouts are written, you're doing exactly how it's written. Then there's what's called scaled athletes, which is what I am, which means that there's lighter versions or easier versions of the prescribed workout. So they balance it out by having two team members being the prescription athletes or the RX athletes, and then they have two of the scaled athletes. So I was a scaled athlete because I'm still new, can't do the pace, the weights, the strength, the conditioning, all that stuff of the workouts as they're written. So they give you moderate versions of that. And so, going into this, I knew I was going to be probably one of the lower end of my team, if not the lowest. In fact, when we were doing our kind of tryouts for I don't want to call it tryout, just like your qualifiers, so they can know where to place you. I was pretty much coming in last on the classes, whether it was a run, whether it was certain lifts. And I was okay with that because I had zero expectations of like me crushing it. In fact, I really didn't want to super crush it because I just knew my skill level wasn't at the same as somebody who's been doing CrossFit for 10 years. Uh, so they placed me on a team, and I didn't really know who was the other scaled athlete. I could kind of pick out who was like the more prescription athletes, but getting on a team and feeling like they're only going to be as good as you are because you're kind of you're holding them back in a sense, if you want to look at that, um, or you're going to be the one that like bottoms out the points. Kind of feels like pressure, as I would think that the person who's like the RX athlete, like the one that's the most experienced, they're like carrying the team. So I had kind of that belief going in. I also went into this competition where there's like 80 people competing, right? There's 20 teams of four, and looking at them going like, these are people that have been doing this for years. Most of these people are way more experienced. Like some of the lifts that I was kind of assigned to do, I'd never done before. So I had to like practice the week of, or even just I was watching a lot of videos on YouTube, just like what are the mechanics of some of these lifts, because I've never done it before, and I don't even know what my max weight would be on them because I don't even know what my minimum weight is. So if I looked at this as like, oh my God, I have to perform to a certain level, and I've had all this meaning on me being like the quote unquote worst athlete on the team, my mindset going into it would have been really kind of self-sabotaging. And um, I would have felt really insecure about being in a room of people that I felt were better than me. Instead, the way that I approached every step of this, signing up for the competition, was like, just go for the experience. right? Like I am such a big fan of experiences because good and bad, they're challenging me out of my comfort zone. And I have realized that my confidence comes the more I'm out of my comfort zone. And I've gotten used to that feeling of being like, well, I don't know what I'm doing, but here we go. Or, well, how am I going to handle this? Because it builds confidence. Because at the end of it, after all said and done, I actually know how to handle it once I've done it the first time. So going into this competition, all I knew was I'm just going to give my best. I have no idea, like, had no idea how the scoring works. I had no idea what the levels of the other teams are. Our first event of four, so you do four different events, was all Olympic lifting, so really heavy lifting. And there are dudes that are putting up 200 plus pounds, lifting stuff. And here I am at like 85 pounds struggling. Um, and so you can kind of get intimidated by that if you're like, "Oh, Jesus, like how am I contributing to this at all?" What I didn't see was that there were other of the scaled athletes, other people like me who weren't putting up nearly as much weight, or um, maybe they weren't being as consistent. And when the scoring results came out after we got second place, I looked at where our team placed in each event, and we never got really super high in scoring. Like we were never first in an event. I don't even think we were second in an event. Some we were third in, but we kind of hung out in the middle of the pack on almost all the events. But it was that consistency that actually drove up our rankings. And that was another beautiful lesson too, because while we didn't have like, because sometimes they'll have people that are really good at the lifting, they're really super strong, but they can't do the cardio or they can't do the gymnastics part of CrossFit. And so that kind of balanced out. And I think what our team did really well was we were just consistent and showing up and like doing the workouts and keeping a good pace, um, and flowing and working together really well. And I think we had a decent strategy. And so it wasn't that we won every single thing, and it wasn't that we outperformed everybody else. We were the most consistent. And if that isn't a recipe for how to win at life, I don't know what is. Because it's not comparing yourself to other people and how much better they are. It is you doing the consistent things that are important to you. So even there were out of the four events where I could tell I was just gassed. Like my body, my mind was still there, like keep going, but my body was like, you got nothing left to give. I've never done so many burpees in my life. And so my arms were getting real quivery. At what point we were doing burpees together as a group and my shoe came off. So we took the other shoe off and we just did burpees in our socks. So, some people could have quit. They could have like picked up the shoe and tried to put it back on. I was like, well, this is just what it is. We're being timed on this. So just keep going. And I was, when we're doing burpees as a group, the reps only count when the last person stands up from that burpee. So we have to do it together. And everybody was waiting on me to stand up pretty much every time, but I just kept going. And of course, those doubts of like, just stop here, just quit, or just give up, or, this is good enough, right? You guys have done 29 burpees, like, you don't need to kill it. It was like, nope, we're just going to put your foot up. All right, put the other foot up. All right, step onto the plate. All right, step onto the plate. Okay, back down. And it was really being present in the moments of just move that next body part. Just take that next step. You don't need to think about how you have 20 steps to go. Just take that next step. Towards the end, I knew, like in our final event, I knew that my body just didn't have the nutrition that it needed and the conditioning to have gone through basically like CrossFit workouts in a 4 hour period. And I looked at the RX athlete on our team, or one of them, and I looked at him. I said, keep going, keep doing your burpees. I can't do the last round. We had like 6 more to go. And I was like, I can't. I knew, I mean, it's not that I couldn't do it. I could have done it, but it would have cost us a lot of time because my arms were giving out. So it would have been a lot slower. And we had a time to be under. And so I looked at him, I said, you got to keep going, just keep going, keep 6 more, 6 more. I can't do it. And so he was able to do it. And then what ended up happening is we had one more run to go through. And so I was the first one to go through the run. So I was able to push it. And even as I'm running, knowing that my body is like toast, all it was like, you only have like 10 more seconds left to put energy out and then you can rest. And I've done CrossFit enough knowing that like you basically feel like you're going to die for a good minute after a workout. And then you recover and then you're like pretty good. And you kind of recognize it's uncomfortable, but for a minute. And when you look at that, I don't know, I kind of equated it to childbirth. It's like at some point this baby's going to come out and you're going to have a cool kid. Like you're going to have a baby, you're going to be a parent. Like just, yeah, pain is temporary and this is uncomfortable. Same thing when you're going through relationship struggles sometimes. It's like, yeah, this is the uncomfortable part, but on the other side of this, you'll heal or you'll have learned lessons. When it comes to struggles in your business or managing a team, like it's all temporary. Everything is temporary. And so when you can have that of just, I want to push myself for another minute because I want to see what I'm capable of. And if it's just a minute of suffering, let me see what I can do. That was way more valuable to me than the results that we got by placing second. Yet we placed second, yet we got the results by consistency, not because we were the best. So that is how I approach pretty much everything in my life right now is I go for the experience, I go for the journey of who I'm becoming, and I'm so much more detached from getting any sort of result in my life. Yet the irony is the more detached I am from any sort of dollar amount or goal or whatever, um, the more those things tend to happen, right? But again, it doesn't change me because the change for me comes from the journey, comes from the experience. Confidence comes from doing something I never thought I could do. Like CrossFit 1, competing in CrossFit 2, placing second in a CrossFit competition 3. And I'm excited. I would totally do it again. Getting yourself in rooms, like even something like going to a conference or going to a networking event or taking a training or signing up for a program or something where you feel like, I don't know if I belong here. What am I doing? Like that whole imposter syndrome. Do it anyways, right? Focus more on who you're becoming in that by challenging yourself outside of your comfort zone rather than I have to fit in or I have to know everything. I have to. Some of the best confidence builders have been me getting in rooms where I felt completely out of place. And not because anybody else felt that way, but I felt that way. I've been in a mastermind program with my business coach where these people were doing multiple seven figures and I'm in there going like, I don't know how to teach you. They're talking about all sorts of advanced business strategies. This was back in 2020 and I just felt like I had nothing to contribute and offer to anyone. And if I were in that same room today 3 years later after the experiences I've been through, I would feel so much more confident that I could be able to help anybody out in their business, but I had to be in the room feeling uncomfortable and out of place first before I would ever get to the point where I've had enough experience to now provide value and impact in that room. So, if you gave yourself the opportunity to detach yourself from a result that you're putting a lot of meaning on right now in your life and you just started working towards it for the experience and you kind of focused in on who you're becoming and who you need to be to get to that result, not so much on the result itself, how might that change your experience of the pursuit of that goal? How might that make it feel less stressful or less impossible or less scary or less intimidating or overwhelming? Because when you are focusing on who you're becoming, you win no matter the outcome. And I think that's really the biggest takeaway. If you've been in any of my programs, you hear me say this all the time. You're either going to get the result you want or the lesson you need, but either way, you win. And when you can approach life from that mindset of being really detached from a specific result and focus more on your growth and development, it is a complete game changer to your enjoyment of your life. Because we oftentimes we place so much energy on that end result and so much meaning of like, I'll be happy when XYZ result happens. But oftentimes when that happens, we get the result and we're just like, cool, yay. And it lasts for like a minute. Maybe it lasts a day, maybe it lasts a week. That feeling of achievement and like you accomplished something. However, if you are becoming someone that is more about the growth and the journey that you're on, that lasts longer. It lasts a lifetime because who you evolve into stays with you. And so, yes, results are fun. Yes, I loved that we got second place. I was floored. I lived off that dopamine high. I'm still living off of it a day later. But that feeling is going to fade. And, if I focus solely on where we place, then that would be temporary. And, come next week, I'd be back to just, having a good memory. Um, but the fact that I was able to push myself out of my comfort zone, that I, saw how consistent we were and how consistent I've been with my workouts. I'm like, that's the takeaway. That's the lesson is the consistency that is a lesson I don't have to learn again. That is a very valuable lesson that I'm going to take with me for life of just how important consistency is. So you're going to get the result you want or the lesson you need, but either way, you win. All right, Lashpreneurs, have a good one.